بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كان في يوسف وتي يوسف وأخوه أحب إلى أبينا منا ونحن عصبة إن آباءنا في ضلال اقتلوا يوسف اقتلوا يوسف أو
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. We approach the end of Sha'ban. Pray and hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts us amongst the sincere lovers and the followers of the Imam of that time. Allah ta'ala Fajr Sharif, his auspicious, blessed birthday. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the opportunity to be in preparation for his return, inshallah. Inshallah, as the occasion is closer, then I will share a hadith in terms of the preparation for the return of the Imam, for what is the meaning of wait. Continuing on our reflections on the ayat of the Holy Quran, we are in Sura Yusuf, the 12th chapter of the Quran, and in fact, Surah Yusuf also is the 12th juz of the Holy Quran. And divide the Quran into 30 ajza. The 12th juz is, in fact, where part of the surah is in. However, since we spoke about numbers, this is not necessarily a significant aspect because of, or as significant, because of the fact that the divine division of the Quran into 30 ajza is not necessarily something that was done by the order of the Prophet ﷺ. The compilation, according to our school, we said compiling the Quran, and the order of the Quran is the order that the Prophet ﷺ gave to the Ummah. This is the Quran as it is, Bayt did not suggest anything different. And so in the school of Ahlul Bayt, we believe this is what was intended. And it was not compiled after the Prophet by Uthman or anyone else for that matter. Rather, it was compiled at the time of the Prophet. What happened later is unifying, meaning they rejected any Quran other than the one that they introduced. What was the difference? It was the fact that they excluded all the explanations. They excluded all the narrations surrounding the ayat. So originally, the scribes who wrote the Quran were writing explanations. So this is the Quran, and then they would write what happened for that ayat to be revealed, what the Prophet said in response to the questions that they asked. So they would write some of those things. When it came to the time of Uthman, they decided that they would basically exclude all of those and just introduce one, which is what we have today, meaning they excluded any of the explanations. Why do we say that it's not changed? Because the Quran itself said it will be protected. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran clearly says it will be protected. Most of our scholars today believe in what I'm sharing. In the past, we did have scholars who suggested otherwise. However, we're not being disrespectful to them. Rather, we're saying that as we progress and we put our thoughts and ideas together, we build more mature ideas. And as humanity is maturing in the school of Ahlul Bayt, we have come to the maturity to realize that this is the Quran intended by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the Ummah. However, again, the division into 30 was done later on to help people who want to recite the Quran in 30 days. So if it's 30 days, 30 parts. I think in some, in Urdu, you refer to it as Safara, I think. So that's 30 Ajza or 30 Safara. And so that was done later on, and it's done based on much later. And it was done based on how it was written. And so if you realize in the newer by Osman Farah, much later, not that Osman's time, an individual who was a calligrapher who wrote the Quran in a way that every page ended with the ayah. Okay? So prior to that, it was not that way. It was a little different. So he did it a little bit different, and he ended every page with an ayah, which was a nice way of doing it, so that you didn't have to flip the page for the next for the continuation of the ayah. When he did that, if you look at the ajda in Rasm Antana, this type of calligraphy, you'll find the end of ajda sometimes will not coincide with the end of the page. So the Jews of dancing page later in the next page or something. Anyhow, this is all only to assist people memorizing and reading and so on. Yes, we do have a hadith on it that reciting the Quran once in 30 days at least, so that would require dividing it somehow. But what is significant in the numerology, actually there are a few of them. If I remember later on this, I'll share other ones as well. However, when it comes to, we passed this area already, however, we just quickly go back to it. إذ قال يوسف, ayah number 4. Let's go back to ayah number 4. إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت 11 كوكبا. So when Yusuf said to his father, my father, I have seen or I saw 11 planets. Okay? Up to this point in the ayah, we have 11 words. Up to أحد عشر كوكبا, we have 11 words. Now you have to understand, if you count them, you have to count Ya by itself. Okay? Because Ya is a word on its own. Ya is the word which is known as Nida, to call. So إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت أحد عشر كوكبا. 11 words already. Now, أحد عشر كوكبا means what? 11 planets. أحد عشر كوكبا contains 11 letters. Okay, that's another one. So we have, there is some of the miracles in the Quran when it comes to the numbers. Later on with the number 7, one of the miracles of the Quran is number 7. In this surah, especially with the dream of the king, when he had the dream, 7 cows and so on, we will discuss that and you'll see how it's impossible, literally impossible, for the Quran to have been the work of any human who is, again, year after year, more research, uncover more miracles in the Quran, scientific miracles, numerological miracles, and other levels of the miracles of the Holy Quran. We paused at the ayah number 6. So the beginning of the story started with the dream. Ayah number 4. He had the dream, he told his father. Then his father told him, do not share your dream with your brothers. Therefore, they would have a plot or a secret plan against you, take them. And then he warned him that that is definitely will be supported by Shaitan. In the Shaitan, the Insan Alu, meaning surely Shaitan is a clear enemy of Insan. And then the next ayah, ayah number 6, we went through it just quickly. وَكَذَلِكَ and such, يَجْتَبِيكَ will make you a chosen person. يَجْتَبِيكَ is to be made as the chosen one who deserves to be chosen and elevated above others. And we said that the term comes from collection of even the Jabi is when you collect. So you collected the seeds at some points, and grains and so on, or the collector of taxes. And we said that what is collected is the best part of your wealth. Now, khums and zakat is what remains for us. Everything else that we spend or give to as inheritance to our children, God knows if it would be spent in the right way and if any of it would remain for us. But what we give sincerely and when we have access to it and the authority to give it for the way of God, for the sake of God, then that will remain for us. يَجْتَبِيكَ رَبُّكَ, your Lord, وَيُعَلِّمُكَ, and He will teach you مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ, from the interpretation of ahadith means what? Hadith is narration, when the speech narration. Ahadith, narrations, but it is referring in this context, it is referring to the dreams. So one of the expressions used for dreams is ahadith, okay? Because people narrate their dream. When they have a dream, they like to narrate their dream. So from that angle. وَيُتِمُّ, and He completes His ni'mah, His blessings upon you, or His special blessing upon you and upon your fathers. وَعَلَىٰ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ, the family of your father, as He did it to your fathers, عَلَىٰ أَبَوَيْكَ مِنْ قَبْلِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ. And we said in our Alimun Hakim, the end Alimun Hakim has to do with Ta'lim. God is teaching in the ayah. He says He will teach you. And the Hikmah, the way He taught him. Okay? So the way he learned the ta'wil of his hadith or his own ruqya, the way he learned it was through all the hardship that he went through. It took all the hardship that he went through, and that is the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next ayah, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَتِهِ آيَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. Yes.
I have a question on the previous one.
Sure.
Two of them. One was you said three types of trees. Last.
Yes.
Can you mention the three types? Sorry, I missed.
Okay, so the one is the dream that is inspiration from God, and one is the work of shaitan. Okay, scaring the person has no meaning, but just scaring the person. Now, inspiration from God through the angels it doesn't mean that it has to happen. Something has to happen. It could be something to wake us up. Inspirational that would wake us up. Or it could be a warning about something that's about to happen from God. That is the true role here. The other one is the work of shayateen, just making us fearful of something to sway us from pursuing some good deed, for example. So the work of shayateen. The third one is the result of basically azat ahlam, which is just our mind and our thoughts and our daily things or something that we're worrying about. So these are the three according to that.
The other question, you mentioned earlier is referring to all these
all of it, yes.
Versus Bani Israel or only the children, right? Only the children.
No, Ali Yaqub, okay, Bani Israel, the children of Israel. Ali Yaqub, anyone related to him, not only by blood. Okay,
so
so
children are his biological
children, biological. So Bani Israel would be his biological children and their children.
And that is throughout the Quran and Israel?
Yes, the children of Israel, yes. So whenever, this is why, now this is the problem of we don't know for sure because at some point people infiltrated them. Other times they changed the laws here and there. But initially, for them, it was them. They were the believers, and they were Bani Israel. So they kept the religion to themselves, for themselves. They wouldn't even do any kind of tabligh for others to join. Any invitations or anything of that nature. Today, you may have heard that typically they don't accept leaders or converts. Okay, Jewish people, they don't accept converts typically. Now they suggest, when I've spoken to some of the priests or refer to them, rabbis. When I've spoken to some of the rabbis, they told me that no, we do accept, but the norm is we reject them several times to make sure that it's real, it's sincere. So they kind of explained it or justified it in this way, but they don't. So Bani Israel refers to the children, the lineage of Israel, whereas Ali Yaqub could be more even with the ad of the Prophet ﷺ refers to not just Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. Ahl al-Bayt are his family. Ahl al-Bayt are definitely إنما يريد الله ليتبعكم ويجتهد البيت. Ahl al-Bayt are the specific individuals mentioned by him. But Alu Rasulullah could refer to others who joined them, others who became with them, like them. So the people who today, if we are sincere in following Ahlul Bayt, we would be, praised in Ali. Yes, yes, yes. So, so Bani Israel today, typically they would be descendants from the 12 tribes. And some of them may even have records of which tribe they belong to, which tribe they come from, which son they come from. So they kept that record. So some of them would know that. However, there are others who join later, so not every Jew is Bani Israel today. Not every Jew is Bani Israel. So now, if they are referred to now, it's an expression. It's not the real thing. So continuing from the next آية لقد كان في يوسف وإخوته آيات للسائلين. لقد lam is for emphasis. La is when we want to say something for sure. That is typically saying that it's something that already happened. Surely it happened. It already happened. Surely there was, Kana was, in Yusuf and his brothers, في يوسف وإخوته and his brothers, آيات للسائلين, signs, not ayah. It is the plural. So the difference between ayah and ayat is one is singular and one is the plural. Here it's saying there are signs for those who ask. Who are those who ask, and what are these signs? And Yusuf, what he, let's go back quickly. I don't know if we shared that. No, that's the next slide. So we're fine. Yes, that's the next slide. So Yusuf and his brothers. That includes all the 12. Yeah. In all of those, there are signs. Ayatun lisa'ili. What are the signs and who are the sa'ili? The simple thing for sa'ili, they say, it is the people who ask the Prophet. Because if you recall, how did the surah get revealed? The revelation was in response to a question. Remember? So they came and asked the Prophet ﷺ, and if you recall, their purpose was to prove that he does not know. Okay, so they had asked Ahlul Kitab about a story that the Prophet would not know about, wouldn't have the details of, and they came back to him and asked him, tell us, how did the children of Yaqub, Bani Israel, how did they end up in Egypt, in Misr, when they originally lived in Canaan? So that was the question. So these people who asked, through Yusuf and his brothers, there were signs for them, for those who asked. Is it limited to them? Not necessarily. The Quran says, Ayatun lis-sa'ili, for those who ask. So anybody who asks about their story, anybody who has questions about their story, they will have signs. And the signs in the Quran are for what? What are typically the signs of the ayat? What is the Quran a book of? Guidance. So the ayat are for what? For guidance. Every one of the ayat of the Quran is for guidance. So anyone who wants guidance, they can seek guidance through researching and learning about Yusuf and his brothers. لقد كان في يوسف وإخوته آيات للسائلين. Also, it could, and again, whenever we say could, we're suggesting, we're meant to do tafsir or to do tadabbur and reflect, and even our greatest of Muslim mufassirin. If there is no hadith from the Prophet to say this is what it means, therefore we would say it is a suggestion. It could mean, but we don't know. Okay, that's something we need to be very careful about. So when we say these suggestions, it is not that we are suggesting this is the tafsir. Okay? We're suggesting based on our understanding or reflection or tadabbur. So, Ayatul Lisa'ili could also refer to people who asked and learned about them before even the revelation of the Quran. So it's not limited to the time of the Prophet or the time of the Quran. Through Yusuf and his brothers, there were ayat, signs for those who asked. Those who asked perhaps could be referred to people who were asking to learn the truth, or in general, it could be somebody who's asking, but is, for instance, the people who asked in the story of the revelation, maybe Asbab al-Nuzul, the people who asked, their intention was what? To prove the Prophet wrong. That he's not a prophet, that he doesn't know. Okay. Now, when he gave them when the answer came through the surah, these are signs for them to guide. Were they all guided? Maybe not. Okay, some of them continued to reject. So it doesn't mean that everyone who's searching for the truth in general. What are the signs? Now, the ayat that we learn from Yusuf and his brothers. The surah is just about to start telling us those signs. Okay? So this is actually the introduction of all the signs of guidance that we can gain through Yusuf and his brothers. Okay? An example, Allah mentioned that specific example. The brothers, through their gender, had a father. Okay? Brought him to be in charge of all of them. Saved them. They thought they were useful. We'll come to that. They thought they were useful, and he was useless. That's why they said to their father, in the next ayah, ayah 8, they said to their father, or they said about their father, that he is surely in error. Why? Because they suggest, I will come to that, according to our Mufassirin, the Dalal Mubin, they were not referring to his religiosity, of course, because if they did, they are denying him as a prophet of God. They are no longer believers, and we don't believe that that was the case with them. Rather, they were suggesting that in this world, we are strong, useful, helpful, and this baby or young child and his younger brother are useless. Okay? That is error on behalf of our father. Little did they know that their life will depend on him. Not only their life, but the lives of the entire region. The entire region, including their home and Egypt and the surrounding areas. All of them will depend on him. Okay. So these are signs. Ayat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us through their story in the surah. So, ayatun lisa'ilin. إذ قالوا when they said La Yusufu, be careful, not La Yusufu. We said La means, in this context, means emphasis, surely. Li is belonging, okay? This is La for emphasis. La Yusufu, surely Yusuf and his brother, wa akhuhu, are more beloved, ahabbu, more beloved. Hub is love, ahab is basically, we call it af'al tafdeel, meaning they are more beloved or the most beloved. Could be more or most. أحب إلى أبينا منا, they're more beloved to our fathers from us. ونحن عصبة, and we are now عصبة means a group of men. Okay, and they say it's at least 7 or something. So there were how many of them? No, not 10. Okay, there was 10 of them. Him and his brother يوسف وأخوه أحب إلى أبينا منا, 10 of them. ونحن عصبة, we're 10 men, so useful. Our father relies on us. The farming, the basically all the taking care of the cattle and so on, we do it. Okay? What is he doing, this young boy? And his brother, even younger, according to the riwayah. Yet, he is more beloved to our father. Then they said, Inna, surely, Abana, our father, Lafi ضلال مبين. Surely, again, la, we said for emphasis. Surely in clear error. ضلال مبين. Important point here. Were the brothers of Yusuf, first of all, going back? Why did they say Yusuf wa akhuhu? Yusuf and his brother. They are the brothers of that younger brother as well. Okay? So it could have said Yusuf wa akhina, our brother, not his brother. It is suggested, and it seems based on the riwayah, they were brothers from both parents. Yusuf and Binyamin were brothers from the same mother, whereas others were from other mothers. So that is one point. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam.
الله
mean that he was not guided in terms of faith? No, he was lost. That is what he was referring to. He was lost. He was not in his familiar territory home, and he was basically دخل المدينة على حين غفلة. He entered the city during the time of people being asleep or resting, and he saw the event, the incident, a believer fighting or being fought against and harmed by a non-believer. هذا من شيعته وهذا من عدوه. So he said, I did it when I was min ad-dallin, not that he was astray. So some people, through this, they say, well, he's not infallible until he's a prophet. This is their accusation, or this is their explanation for their accusation of the prophets of God, that they say prophets were not infallible prior to appointment. Yet, the way they treat the prophets even after their appointments is as a person who is not infallible. Okay, accusations of them committing all sorts of sins and mistakes and so on. However, there are a lot of contradictions. We open that topic. The next contradiction would be, why would you then follow everything that he does and call it sunnah? Okay? You follow his sunnah, and his sunnah is anything that he does. Yeah? The way he dresses, the way he walks. And they explain, okay, if he does it multiple times, that it becomes clear that it is mustahab. If he says that you should do it, then it's wajib. If he does it once only, then it suggests that it's permissible. These are explanations that are given by scholars of jurisprudence. That is part of usul al-fiqh, principles of jurisprudence. That if the Prophet does something once, if he is reported to have done it once, it is permissible. If he does it all the time, it's mustahab, it's recommended. You know, and if he says that you should do it, then it's suggesting that it's wajib, not just recommended. And so, unless there's an ayah that says otherwise or another action, then it would be mubah. In any case, back to Dalal al-Mubin in this ayah. Did the brothers of Yusuf suggest that he was in clear error with regards to his religion? According to our Tafseer, no. Others did because they think Dalal al-Mubin means clear error with regards to faith. No, that is not what it means. And if it meant that, then the brothers at that point were non-believers. They would be kafir. They believe in the prophet of their time, and he's their father. Now, do we have proof that they were not kafir? Yes, Quran itself. Okay. Their intention was to get even if their intention to eliminate Yusuf was to what? Get the father's love. And they would do this one deed, and what would they be? وَتَكُونُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ. After this action, you will be righteous people. Okay? So the intention was يَحْلُ لَكُمْ وَجْهُ أَبِيكُمْ, that you will have the father's love exclusively, or more of his love and attention, and after that you will be salihin. So their intention is the love of this prophet of God, knowing that he's the prophet of God, knowing that he's the righteous person, knowing that he belongs to the lineage of Ibrahim wa Ishaq, and he is Yaqub. Okay, knowing all that, now with all that, they want to have the love of their father. Their dalal al-Mubin in this context is not suggesting that he is in clear error with regards to faith. Rather, his judgment as a human being in terms of his children, that's their interpretation. Now, this brings us to another conversation, which is, was Yaqub ala nabina wa alayhi salam at fault for displaying more love and affection for Yusuf and his brother? Did he make mistakes in how he displayed his love? Did he lack, or did he not display enough love for his children, for his other children? Well, it wasn't his fault that they became jealous and decided to harm their brother. Unfortunately, there are some who make those suggestions. They say, well, he would display that love and so on, and so this is what the ayah is suggesting. Clearly, the brothers can see La Yusufu wa akhuhu ahabbu ila abina. And our scholars, they have a different opinion. Even if the brothers saw anything, it's not because he was discriminating. So our question again, just to rephrase, was he discriminating? A prophet of God, we know, will be infallible, masoom. Would an infallible discriminate amongst his children, for example, amongst people, amongst his wives, for example? Would an infallible discriminate? Is it possible? Wouldn't it be a fault if a prophet of God is discriminating? How could he be a role model for the rest of the society? For the rest of the society, the rest of the society now has to witness and learn. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is declared in the Holy Quran as a great role model, a beautiful role model. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة. A beautiful example. So is it in some actions or everything? Everything. And that's how all the believers believe in theory. Therefore, in practice, he could not make a mistake. Similarly, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam. Now, some of the wives of the Prophet, our Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, were jealous of others, specifically of Khadija, and therefore her daughter Fatima sallallahu alayhi wa. And they even brought it up and declared it themselves. Aisha says, I asked the Prophet, why is it that you love Khadija so much when God has replaced her with some better wives after her? And the Prophet said, no, that is not true. He did not replace her with any better. She believed in me when others denied. She gave me when others deprived. And God granted her children through me and none of the others. This perhaps referring to the ones who are jealous. Because Maria did have, Al-Qibtiyya, did have a son with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ibrahim, the son of Maria, who died young, passed very young. He was the same age as Imam Hussein alayhi salam, or similar age as Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would not discriminate. Yes, if he's confronted, why do you have any special treatment or mention of Khadija? So this is why. Yaqub alayhi salam would never be mistreating or discriminating against any of his children. But could they read his eyes, for example? Automatically, when you see wali from awliyaullah, if we see a wali from awliyaullah, yet we are so conscious, let's say, for example, you know, uh, amongst people that you know of one who is very righteous and one who is not very righteous, brothers, friends, whatever, and you try not to display favoritism, but your eyes can tell the story. Yes? So would he pay less attention to other brothers? No. Would he not greet them, treat them well, love them, give them, gift them? He would not do that. He would be doing all the things that he is supposed to do to his children. No discrimination. However, again, perhaps through reading of his eyes. Or now, another thing is, it is through their ignorance as well. Okay, sometimes you become more protective towards a child because they're sick. Okay, for example, what happens? The siblings, parents who have multiple children, they know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Now you have to explain to the rest that I'm not, being. It's not about this person or this child of mine, this siblings of yours being my favorite. It's simply that they're sick. I remember my mother used to always say it, remind us, okay, that the one who is far from home, he has a special place in the heart until he comes back. The one who's sick until they get better. And the one who is young until they get older. Okay, that's natural. So these are naturally the younger children of Yaqub. And also, according to Riwayah, their mother passed away. Okay? Their mother, they shared their mother, Yusuf and Binyamin, they were sharing mother. And their mother passed. So they were orphaned from the mother. They had to spend more time with them, naturally, give them love and affection and so on. They're missing it from their mother's side. And they were younger. So displaying any kind of affection and love to this young child is natural. Also, as children grow up, you start assessing them, a prophet of God especially, would start assessing them with relationship to their faith, iman, and deeds, action. So if they're sinful, would he be smiling in their face when they're sinful, for example? If they're committing a sin. If they're displaying jealousy, would it be right for him to smile in their face? Would it be right? That would be amr bil munkar, or approval of munkar. They're doing the wrong thing and he is approving of it and smiling in their face. So what should he do in that situation? If he sees any level of jealousy, sinfulness, lack of concern for God, being beautiful and so on, he should display disapproval. Okay? Or even maybe even speak to them about it. And obviously it wouldn't be the speech when you're trying to remind somebody to not do something. Okay, train disciplinary speeches normally are detested. You speak to a teenage boy and tell him what you're doing is wrong, you're not going to get any positive reactions. It's natural. So Yaqub ala nabina wa alayhi salam was simply doing his duty. No mistakes from his side that would cause them to do to say and do what they do. So when they said, it's not because he made a mistake. Let's be clear on this. He did his part. Their ignorance of the fact that he is younger, therefore, or they are younger and they're orphaned. Okay? And perhaps we are displaying jealousy. Perhaps we are maybe whispering and a father is watching, sees what's happening in his presence. They're treating their brother in one way. As soon as he turns around, he knows he's a wise person besides being a prophet of God. Yeah? The prophets of God are the wisest people of their time. So besides simply seeing and observing as a wise individual, he's looking through the eyes of God, not the physical eye. Please. اتقوا فراسة المؤمن فإنه ينظر بعين الله. Not just a prophet of God. The hadith says, be careful about the sharpness of a believer. When you're around a believer, some of our scholars are known about it. When you're around them, they look sharp because they look through the eyes of God. God inspires them and shows them reality. So be careful. Yaqub alayhi salam, he sees, he treats in accordance. And so if they, instead of taking things the right way and trying to be the favorite by doing the righteous thing, okay, instead by plotting and planning to remove him. I think we have a little bit of time. So instead of them choosing to gain the heart of their father through righteousness, they decided to eliminate the problem. So there's a problem for them. Yusuf being and his brother. And it shows that there is error there, major error. Okay. Yes, Yusuf alayhi salam was a prophet of God and one of the greatest, one who became, in fact, a leader, a king. Okay. However, and so the love of the father for him, knowing that he would be the wali and the prophet, is natural. What about his brother? We can't say that Yaqub alayhi salam displayed that special love because he's a prophet, therefore they're right. No, because they said, La Yusufu wa akhu. Yeah, he loved his children, all of them. He knew that he is special, but he wouldn't show it himself. He told his children not to show the brothers. You see what the ayah said? He said, my son, do not share, do not tell the story of your dream to your brothers. Why? Because then they will plot. So he's aware of it. Would he be warning him and displaying something different? It makes no sense. Therefore, we can easily conclude that he never made a mistake in his treatment of children that justifies or that explains even. It's their error, completely their error in judgment and their error in action as a result. Yes.
If we instance of the phenomenon where he did the second best, and he did a little bit more compassion, love, and mercy, situation would have been saved. Was it a second best option?
Excellent. I'll repeat the question. So the question is, was it one of the situations of tarkul awla, doing what's not best, okay, or leaving what is best? Tarkul awla literally means to let go or not do what is best. Al-awla is what's best, or what has the priority. Awla is has more priority. Personally, and this is not just my personal opinion, my teachers, one of my great teachers, and even Jawad, is of the opinion that the prophets do not even do tarkul awla, okay, knowingly. that if they know that this is better, they would not leave it. Okay, so if they do something because they didn't know that it's better, it's a different story. Okay, and then you cannot call it tarkul awla either. Okay, so that's not the best explanation, or it's not a. Would he have known that he should? I mean, he is warning his son, be careful. Okay, he's a wise person. He's a prophet of God, and we're suggesting that he didn't know how to behave, and therefore they saw more love. Okay. It doesn't happen. It's not a situation of tarkul awla, and personally, I don't ascribe to the school of tarkul awla. Okay? Not the Prophet, not Ahlul Bayt. Knowingly, they will not let go of what's awla, what's better. Imam alayhi salam clearly said it. I was never faced with a situation, or with, two situations, both pleasing to God, except that I chose what is most pleasing. إلا ما هو لله أرضى. Okay, so we said أفعل التفضيل. What is most pleasing or more pleasing out of the two equations? So he would never choose what's less pleasing. He would always choose, and that's not just him. He's his teacher and master is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would never choose what's less pleasing. He would always choose what's better, more pleasing to God. So his actions are not in the matter of tarkul awla. It's simply the wrongdoing of the children. Moving to the next ayah. Uqtulu Yusuf. I think we'll pause here so we can share the hadith. Yeah? Inshallah. So the next part is when they decided to eliminate their brother and their conversation, the conversation that went between them. Again, the ayat were a response to ayatun lissa'ilin, to those who were inquiring, asking, yes? So many ayat for them. Details beyond what they have ever recorded, including the conversation happening between the brothers about how to eliminate Yusuf. Yeah. Including that. So Quran, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealing to the Prophet the response in details that they were not even themselves aware of. These are part of the ayat. So the details of what the conversation was between them, but very brief, subhanAllah. So brief in the Quran, but you could make stories and books about the details of those very short cliches or key points. Back to the occasion that we are anticipating, and inshallah we observe the eve of the 15th of Sha'ban and the day of the 15th of Sha'ban, both very important times. I wanted to share the hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding the time that we're in, the time of the occultation of Wiladat of the Imam of our time, Ajjalullah ta'ala rajul sharif. Now, the occasion, obviously, the 15th of Sha'ban marks his birth, but it's a blessed day in itself. And that's what we read in the dua that is recommended for the eve of the 15th of Sha'ban. And I urge mu'mineen and mu'minat to focus on quality, not quantity. In a'mal, any time that we have a'mal, focus on quality, understanding. If you can combine, by all means, but the focus should be on quality. Okay, so when we read these du'as, the intention is to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acknowledging the night of the birth of the Imam, to get connected and closer to the Imam of our time, Ajjalullah ta'ala farajah. So that should be the goal. So it shouldn't be a matter of, okay, I did this amal, no, next one, okay, I did the amal tonight. Am I closer to God or the Imam? Practically, in many cases, it doesn't happen because it's ritualistic. It's not really with reflection and intention. So if our intention is there, one of the beautiful du'as, it describes how this is the night. Allahumma, we ask you by the rights of this night and the one born in it. وحجتك وموعودك. Then the fact that التي قرنت, the night that you have made it blessed by two things. Okay? Fadl upon fadl. Okay? فَتَمَّتْ, therefore your ni'mah upon us was completed through it, completely. فَتَمَّتْ. How was the completion? It's a blessed night completed with the birth of the Imam, Ajalallah Ta'ala, Farajah Sharif. So the Dua tells us that it is a blessed night in itself, and it's completed and perfected by the birth of our Imam. The hadith regarding the Imam is Ghaiba from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, أفضل أعمال أمتي انتظار الفرج. This hadith actually is narrated by Sunni and Shia. They have narrated this. However, what is intidar and what do they mean by what is meant by it? They have different interpretations. The best action of my ummah is to be awaiting for the relief, intidar al-faraj. So, in general, intidar al-faraj, to expect a relief from God and wait for it, is an act that is displaying patience and results in what? Stronger faith. If one is going through difficulty and does not expect any relief from God and is not waiting for it, then they will be in despair. Yes? And therefore, that is a state of weakening of faith. One who is not, does not have hope in the mercy of God, one who gives up on God's mercy, is actually sinful. In the greater sin as listed by our scholars, when they say the great sins based on the ayat. Great sins are based on what Quran clearly said do not. One of them is to lose hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another one is to al-amn min makrillah. Okay. So to not to feel safe from the consequences set by God about our actions. That is also a great sin. So that feeling itself is a sin. If one was to lose hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So from that angle, intidar al-faraj is a beautiful thing in general. However, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam declares it as the best a'mal of my ummah, it's obviously referring to a specific faraj, and that is why the faraj comes with al-faraj. Okay? There's an ayah in the Quran in general about when God shows us the faraj or the relief and the way out. When he says, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Very, very powerful ayah in Surah Al-Talaq. And this Surah Al-Talaq refers to Talaq meaning divorce. There's so much in this surah about yattaqillah. The ayah repeats, the surah repeats again and again. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ. Why is this? Most of the time, people, when they get in a situation of splitting and divorce, whether it be husband and wife, or even friends, partnership, and so on, most of the time, taqwa is out of the window. Okay, it's emotional. Everything is emotional, no rationality, and therefore there's a lot of oppression, lack of consideration in terms of our duty to God in that situation and so on. So in general, that is the case. The ayah says, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. مَخْرَجًا comes in what? In what we call nakira, meaning it's not specific, it's unspecific, non-specific. Okay, makhrajan, a way out. Okay, whereas al-faraj in the hadith is what? The relief, a specific one. So if it was about general problems that people have, it should have been a way out. Okay, because it ways out for people's relief for people's problems, and a way out for them from the problem is not always the same. Different ones for different people, and so it could be many different ways. In this case, the hadith is speaking of al-faraj, the relief, the specific one. So the Prophet ﷺ is clearly referring to a specific relief for the ummah, not individuals only, for the ummah. أفضل أعمال أمتي. And the Imam of Ahlul Bayt clearly quoted this in this context, which is awaiting for the Imam of the time and his return. Now, why is it so important? Why is it so good? Why is it أفضل أعمال أمتي? Earlier we gave part of the answer. Part of it is that we have hope. We don't give up. We don't lose hope. Okay, in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's part of it. However, there's another side that I have to, perhaps in a few minutes, I will share, and we will conclude inshallah. The other side is the fact that the awaiting for the Imam and the time of his return is not a concept that is meant to be just a feeling, okay, just an emotion. It is meant to be an emotion that is followed with action. That is the real intidar. If you're really waiting for somebody to come, often this example is given. There's actually a poem in Farsi, a beautiful poem about one who's waiting for their beloved, and he is coming. Okay? So it says, rise and start sweeping and decorating. Okay? Why? Because your beloved is coming from the journey. As-safaran, as-safaran. Your beloved is coming from their journey, so prepare the place. If you're expecting somebody who you love, somebody who you respect, you're expecting them to visit, what happens? Let's say you were in grief, saddened by their journey and them going, okay, their absence. And therefore, we got in a state of, let's say, some sort of depressed mode. Okay, what happens generally? Neglect, most sins. Okay, and the house is now neglected. Dishes piling, the laundry is piling, everything is happening. Okay, now you hear the news they're coming. What happens? All of a sudden you get up and start cleaning up. You're expecting your beloved. Okay, you are in grief because he's gone. So that is the meaning of awaiting. And it's also a moral and ethical cleansing in itself. It has that aspect to it. Because what are we preparing? Are we given a time? موقتون our lives. We're not given a time. Are we given a place specifically, okay, an order that there are general things given. And those things are events, not times. Yeah? Events. There's no time given, there are events. Therefore, we want to be part of the good events. Okay? But the most important thing is that we want to make sure when it happens, we're in the right place. What? In the right place in terms of a city? No. When it happens, we don't know when. Right place, you don't know where we expect it to be. So in the right place, in terms of our spirituality, we have purified in a way that when the Imam comes, we're with him. And that's why the comparison or the parable is drawn often between what? The Imam of our time and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. This is very important. The relationship there. Okay, and then that's why it's a parable that's drawn frequent. That's the start, this is the end. Okay. At the start, many people missed out and did not join. Why? Because their hearts were not in the right place. Otherwise, that young man in Basra, whose heart was in the right place, he ran and ran, sole traveler, by himself, riding the night and the day until he made it to Karbala on the day of Mahdi. Okay. When he heard, he ran for it. It doesn't matter where he was. And the ashab of the Imam, according to the hadith, they sleep at night in one place, and the next day they're with the Imam, gathered with him. Okay? Some of them are riding above the clouds. How they will get there. Okay, physically they will get there. When the time is right and he is in the right place, they will get there. But what did they have to prepare? Their spirituality, the heart. So inshallah we understand that intidar is a big aspect of it. It's purification, or the main part of it is purification of the heart and connection with the Imam. عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Sure.
What other factors that make the 15th of Shaban more auspicious?
Besides the birth of the Imam, so according to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, the 15th of Sha'ban for them is like Laylatul Qadr for the rest of the Ummah. So the Ummah have Laylatul Qadr is the night of destiny, night of Qadr. For the Imam of Ahlul Bayt, 15th of Sha'ban is the night, or it is the day, the night off and the day. Okay, so that is the day. So if for us, for instance, the 21st, 23rd of the month of Ramadan is significant, for the Imams, that is the day that is significant. So perhaps the birth of the Imam on that day happened because of that as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed his favor upon the Imams to continue this lineage and to fulfill his promise on the 15th of Sha'ban. You know, so basically the night of Qadr is for us decree for the next year. Okay, this year what's going to happen and so on. Okay, for the Imam decree for them on it's not Laylatul Qadr, it's night of 15th of Sha'ban. That is decree. Okay, and not just perhaps next year, beyond. And in fact, according to the narration of the birth of the Imam, not just the birth happened on the 15th. The entire process was on the 15th. When the Imam called his aunt and said, make your iftar with us, and he told her, she said there were no signs at all. And she asked him who, and he told her it'll be Nargis. She did not see. She said, I saw absolutely no signs. Wise woman, she knows what's going on. There is no sign. So perhaps the entire thing was that night. Just like in the story of Isa alayhi salam. It was also a miraculous thing. It wasn't necessarily a 9 month or whatever, 6 month, 9 months. Well, you can see it was miraculous. So the same with the Imam of our time. So it is a night of decree for them. But the secrets of it are unknown. I mean, there are secrets of it that are unknown. And then comparison that is drawn to it is the how Fatima salamullah alayha is unknown. Okay? She is compared to what? Laylatul Qadr. Okay? So this is also a night that there are secrets about it that are unknown. Okay? Just like Laylatul Qadr. Wow. Other questions? Okay. Salawat. Okay, the boys will be starting a special salawat for the month of Ramadan, inshallah. It's no red coffee. No. That's
We got the red side of the driveway.
Yes.
محمد وآل محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. شجرة النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة ومعدن العلم وأهل بيت الواحد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الفلك الجارة في اللجج الغامرة يأمن من ركبها ويغرق من تركها. المتقدم له الماء والمتأخر عنه زاهق واللازم له لاحق. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الكهف الحصين وغياث المضطر المستكين وملجأ الهاربين وعصمة المعتصمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد صلاة كثيرة تكون لهم رضا ولحق محمد وآل محمد أداء وقضاء بحول منك وقوة يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الطيبين الأبرار الأخيار الذين أوجبت حقوقهم وفرضت طاعتهم وولايتهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعمر قلبي بطاعتك ولا تخزني بمعصيتك وارزقني مواساة من قدرت عليه من رزقك بما وسعت علي من فضلك ونشرت علي من عدلك وأحييتني تحت ظلك. وهذا شهر نبيك سيدي رسلك شعبان الذي حففته منك بالرحمة والرضوان الذي كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يدأب في صيامه وقيامه في لياليه وأيامه ركوعا لك في إكرامه وإعظامك إلى محل حمامك. اللهم فأعنا على الاستناد بسنته فيه ونيل الشفاعة لديه. اللهم واجعله لي شفيعا مشفعا وطريقا إليك مهيا واجعلني له متبعا حتى ألقاك يوم القيامة عني راضيا وعن ذنوبي راضيا قد أوجبت لي منك الرحمة والرضوان وأنزلتني دار القرار ومحل الأخيار.
اللهم صل على محمد آل محمد.
Time to be solved.
It's nice.
It's not. It keeps the close. But I don't know. I'm not still started for the